I guess you once have heard about the dictatorship of Pinochet in Chile. I'm now on a cemetery in Santiago, and here many victims of his regime lie buried. How did the military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet start? And how did it come to an end? Is what you will learn in this video. I'm going to talk about the military dictatorship of Chile. Hey, good to have you back on the channel. If you're new, my name is Stefan. I'm a Dutch history teacher and I like to cover history on location. Like right now, I'm in Santiago, Chile. And if you find this content interesting, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell. And if you want to support me, you can do that via Patreon, PayPal, or via Super Thanks. You can all find the information below the video. It was 1970 and the Cold War was in full swing. Chilean socialist Salvador Allende won the elections, and this worried the United States a great deal. He became the first democratically elected Marxist head of state in Latin America. The Foreign Intelligence Service of the US, the CIA, began plotting that Allende was to be the last and financed anti-Allende right-wing propaganda. Now, so far this had no result. However, by 1972 he had become very unpopular, and that was also due to his policies, because in his years of office he began to nationalize many things and the economy was doing very bad. To strengthen his position, Allende invited military men into his cabinet. On June 29, 1973, a day known as Tanquetezo, disaffected right-wing Chilean officers staged a coup with tanks, but it failed. In August, Augusto Pinochet, a career army man, was appointed to the head of the Chilean armed forces. Who was Pinochet? Because up until that point, he had been a fairly unremarkable man. Not someone people would assume would be the dictator for the upcoming 16 years. Augusto Pinochet was born on November 25, 1915 in Valparaiso, Chile. He grew up in a middle-class family, with his father being a customs official. In his youth, Pinochet demonstrated an interest in military service and enrolled in the military school of Santiago. He excelled academically and eventually graduated as a sub-lieutenant in 1936. During his early military career, Pinochet held various positions, including serving as an instructor at the military school and attending the War Academy. And as the years progressed, he rose through the ranks. Back to 1973. Early September, some military officers approached Pinochet, stating they were plotting a coup. Asked him if he was in or out. Pinochet was in. On September 11, 1973, Chilean jet fighters bombed the presidential palace in Santiago. Allende and men loyal to him made a desperate last stand in La Moneda, the palace. They were overcome by Chilean soldiers and Allende shot himself. In the immediate aftermath of the coup, many left-wing sympathizers came to the streets and protested against what just had happened. The Chilean military responded with a severe crackdown. Many were arrested and put in makeshift concentration camps that sprung up all across the city of Santiago. Infamous was the National Stadium, where prisoners were being interned, tortured, and executed. In the opening phase of the regime, virtually all important national institutions, including the Soccer Federation, were assigned to generals or admirals, colonels or captains, some of them hauled out of retirement. In the universities, also extensively purged, uniformed delegate rectors took over. The atmosphere of Chile was transformed overnight. The regime's first Minister of Interior told some trade unionists visiting his office, "Stop using the word demand. Don't forget that this is a dictatorship. Nobody could have put it better." Announcements were made that Chile was now under the rule of a four-man military junta led by Pinochet. In 1974, Pinochet became the supreme leader of the nation. Political parties were banned, media was censored, and left-wing papers were shut down. Around 80,000 were arrested and another 200,000 forced into exile. Pinochet launched a mop-up operation against leftists in the country known as the Caravan of Death, where a death squad murdered nearly 100 people across the country. In the desolated lands of the Atacama Desert in the north and Patagonia in the south, people were worked to death in concentration camps, and many were murdered. In the capital, At Villa Grimaldi, horrifying things were done to dissidents and their offspring. This was facilitated by the DINA, the National Intelligence Directorate. To the DINA can be attributed most of the horrific incidents of torture documented by, in Chile, the Catholic Church, and abroad by organizations such as Amnesty International. Its notorious torture centers, including the Villa Grimaldi on the eastern outskirts of Santiago, which DINA's twisted humor nicknamed the Laughter Palace. The DINA worked together with the dictatorships of Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil, and they planned Operation Condor, which was a large-scale operation to purge the whole of South America of left-wing sympathizers. An estimated 60,000 were killed across the continent. They even carried out an assassination in Washington, D.C. It did not hurt Pinochet's regime. On the contrary, Chile's economy blossomed after Pinochet's takeover. Under Allende's rule, the economy had done very bad. Pinochet mapped out a plan with the help of Chileans that had studied in the US, and these were nicknamed the Chicago Boys. It was a full reverse on Allende's policy. Everything was now privatized. Initially, this led to recession, but the Chilean economy soon recovered. And how? An economic miracle was happening because the Chilean economy became one of the most stable economies in South America. Now do notice that also inequality gravely increased. At the end of 1988, a referendum was held whether Pinochet could extend his rule. Pinochet expected to win by a landslide, but he was disappointed. He was voted out. Pinochet was outraged and he refused to step down, but his fellow generals felt the pressure of the United States that wanted Pinochet to go, and thus Pinochet became isolated and he had to step down in the upcoming 2 years. The following year, in 1989, elections were held and the center-left candidate Patricio Aylwin won the presidential elections. When Aylwin was inaugurated in March 1990, democracy officially returned to Chile. Pinochet remained the head of the army and received immunity from prosecution. So there was no justice? Well, there's a catch. In 1998, Pinochet visited London for surgery. Now, he did not expect trouble, because during his ruling years, many British politicians, among Margaret Thatcher, supported his regime. Also, Chile chose the side of Great Britain during the Falkland War. Yet, against all odds, the 83-year-old former dictator was arrested in England. See, a week earlier, a Spanish judge named Baltasar Garzón had issued an arrest warrant for Pinochet because of crimes he committed against Spanish citizens. Several Spanish citizens were tortured during Pinochet's rule. Yet, he was not extradited to Spain. On pressure of several British politicians, he was put on a plane and sent back to Chile. In 2004, a Chilean report stated that 35,000 people had been tortured and over 3,000 had been murdered during his rule. The next year, Pinochet was put under house arrest. He was assumed fit enough to stand trial, but in 2006, he passed away. Over 40,000 Chileans that had suffered under Pinochet's rule have been compensated, and 1,300 former soldiers and officers have been tried for crimes against humanity. Perhaps there was some justice after all. If you're Chilean, or perhaps you have Chilean family, let me know in the comments how you or your family experienced the rule of Pinochet. And today there are Chileans who admire him. Do you know why that is? Feel free to leave that in the comments. If you want to learn more about South American history, click here. Thank you so much for watching and best wishes from Santiago, Chile.